So without any further ado, I want to begin with the questions for this evening. Again, with no particular order, I'll begin here with question number 1. All right. Dear Rabbi, I heard that this time period is a sad time period in the Jewish calendar. Can you explain why and what the customs are of what we should do and what we should not do? Okay, so good question. I'll relate to it briefly. We spoke about this during our class, our Happiness Hour class yesterday. But indeed, during this time period, during these 3 weeks that began last week with the fast of the 17th of Tammuz and will go on until the fast of the 9th of Av, coming up in about a week and a half, we are mourning the destruction of the temples of Jerusalem, both the first and the second. The destruction began during this time period. But eventually happened, the burning itself of the temples happened on the 9th of Av. 2 temples on the same day at different years, of course. The first one in the year 586 BCE, the second one in the year 70 CE. It's also a period of time in which many other tragedies occurred in Jewish history, and therefore we contemplate these tragedies, and at the same time, we use this time not just to mourn, but to ask what can be rectified, at least within our own control, within our own power, to be able to rise from these tragedies with even more strength and with even more light. So that's the time period that we're in. Now, to add one layer to it, and that is that everyone has to answer that question. What can be rectified? How can we grow from this in a better and brighter way? Everyone has to answer that individually. But there is a general lesson given to us by the sages, and that is that during this time period, more perhaps than any other time period in the Jewish calendar, we ought to focus on our efforts to love our fellow as we love ourselves, and in a way that maybe we have never done so. Why? Because as our sages point out, the second temple was destroyed because of unconditional hatred, and therefore it will be rebuilt with unconditional love. So the more we love each other unconditionally, the more we are rectifying that destruction and bringing the construction of the third temple sooner to our nation and to our world. So it's a time really, and I would encourage every one of us right here, including myself, to think of relationships that may have been a little bit wobbly lately, or relationships that are completely broken, and to think about how we can strengthen them, whether it's very close relationships with our spouse, with our children, or more distant relationships, or relationships that are, as it is, very, very loose, with some acquaintance or something. Any relationship right now has to be worked on, and we have to learn how to love one another unconditionally. Yes, sometimes forgive and forget, sometimes exercise the art of compromise, for the goal of complete peace and unconditional love. That's really the maximum effort that we should have during this time period. So that's to relate to that question. Question number 2. I've had a very tough time digesting the news lately. Between the anti-Semitic rants and the COVID-19 that continues to spread, one can go meshuggah. How can I maintain my sanity? Good question. I'm sure, everyone can relate. We can indeed go meshuggah, not just the COVID-19 and the anti-Semitic rants, from Stephen Jackson to Deshaun, what's his name? Deshaun Jackson, the Eagles player, to Nick Cannon just 2 days ago, and to so many others. It seems to be that when it rains, it pours. But not just with those news. I think with other news too. The political front doesn't seem at all, optimistic. The situation in Israel and with Iran, I don't know if you heard about the recent attacks, cyber attacks on Iran. That also seems very shaky. So there are many reasons for concern. But I will give you the 2 answers. Number 1, the age-old Jewish answer, and that is that each time they tried to destroy us, we have responded with even more construction, with even more light. That's been the Jewish way. We've spoken about this many, many times. It's almost like King David. How was King David created? How was he created? How did King David come to the spotlight of our nation? Through Goliath. Through Goliath. Goliath made King David King David. That's how he became famous. That's how he became beloved. And that's how he was able to show the world, not just the Jewish nation, his inner vigor, his strength, his unwavering faith. All the Goliaths of the world have made us as a nation, have made Jews King Davids, so to speak. So that's the Jewish approach. Don't focus on the negativities, focus on the positivities that need to come from these negativities. That's answer number one. Answer number two is more practical. Maybe we have to put some time out in our days and in our nights to everything that is happening in the world. Shut the news. Focus on something else. We have full control over our minds here. So, and over our actions in general. So I know we're obsessed with news, and everything that is thrown at us has to be read, and every Facebook post has to be reposted, and every tweet has to have some type of attention. Well, that's not true. We have that ability to shut ourselves from the world in order to develop what is in here. We were never people that were influenced by the weathers and the storms of the world, but we were always people that knew that we have something so much stronger that withstands every storm, that is able to overcome any darkness. And that's what's in here. But if we don't give time to ourselves for what's in here, and all we do is focus on our news, then of course we'll fall into depression and we'll lose hope, and optimism will be thrown out the window. But that, again, has never been the Jewish way. By the way, I'm reminded of that Hasidic commentary on the portion of Shoftim, because there's a commandment in the Torah, in Deuteronomy, that says that Shoftim v'shotrim titen lecha v'chol sha'arecha, that we should put judges and policemen in all of our gates. And the Hasidic commentary says, what does it mean in all of our gates? Judges sit in the courtroom. Police are not just at the gates, they're in the streets. What does it mean, b'chol sha'arecha, in all your gates? And the Hasidic commentaries take this very personally, and they say that the judges and the police do not just refer to judges and policemen out there. They refer to the judges and policemen in here. This is the judge, and this is the police. And we have gates. What are the gates? Our eyes, our ears, our nose even, our mouth. Those are gates. We can decide and judge, put judges right here, judges right here, judges right here, judges in all of our gates. What are those judges and policemen supposed to do? They're supposed to shut their ears when we don't need to listen to all the news. When it's time now for prayer. It's time to do a good deed. It's time for the soul. It's time for God. So put some policemen and judges here. Put some policemen and judges here. Not every speech needs to be said. Not every thought needs to be articulated. Put some judges and policemen right here. Not everything has to be seen. Not every headline has to be read with our eyes. We have that control. And I think that's more of a practical way of looking at of answering this question. That is, yes, we can get depressed, but remember, we have full control over this. It's time to reawaken those judges and those policemen in the gates right here of our cities, and focus much more inward than focus outward. That's to answer that question. Okay, next question. I was so excited about, dear Rabbi, and this is really a sad situation. I mean, it's happened to many during this coronavirus era. So this is what this wonderful lady asks. I was so excited about a wedding, and now because of COVID-19, we have had to postpone it a second time. How can I look at this positively when I won't have the wedding I planned on the date I chose and with the guest I wanted? So again, you're not alone. I know of many cases, unfortunately, of brides and grooms that have had to have either a very intimate wedding or have had to postpone the wedding. I'll say a few things. Number one, as much as we think we choose the date of our wedding, we don't. The wedding day is too sacred of a day for just human mortals to pick that day. In fact, the Talmud teaches us that God picked the day we will be married even before we were born. God picked the spouse we will be married before the day we were born.
Wow.
God picked also the type of wedding we'll have before the day we were born. Why? Because a wedding day is probably the holiest day of our lives. It's the day in which our souls are becoming complete. They are fused into the soul of our better half. And that fusion is made by God. No one can fuse souls but God. So it's really the holiest day. And for such a holy day, he won't let just human beings decide what day to pick and what day not to pick. He'll have the say. God himself will have the say. Because it's the day of, again, his second creation. You were created once when you came out of your mother's womb, and you were created a second time when you got married. Just as God decided when you will come out of your mother's womb, God will decide when you will get married. And by the way, astrologically, Kabbalistically, there's a reason why God decides that, because he wants to, so to speak, align the stars, which is a concept we believe in, we can speak about at a different time. But there's many Kabbalistic reasons of why God picks this day too. So I hope that gives you comfort. That's number one. So whatever day that wedding will happen, it's the day that God had planned for it to happen anyway, for your good, for that second creation to to emerge in the best and the holiest of ways. That's number one. Number two, I will say this. If you'll have to compromise the list of guests or the place in which you'll be married, then I would say, look at it in a positive way. I see it in a very positive way. I'm of the opinion, I don't know what you think, but I'm of the opinion, I don't know what this bride thinks, and I don't know what everyone here thinks, everyone listening. But I'm of the opinion that weddings have become way too out of control. Not just in the past 5 years or 10 years, in the past 30 years, dare I say. Way too out of control. Do you know how people got married 30 years ago, 40 years ago? Before the Holocaust? You know how people got married? Go look at Fiddler on the Roof, see how people got married, even though that's not a reflection of true reality. But look at any Jewish source you may think of 100 years ago, 200 years ago, 500 years ago. Look how people got married. They got married in the most intimate setting, in a very modest way. And the focus was not on the florist or the flowers that she or he brought. The focus was not on the musicians and the music that they play. The focus was not on the hall and the grandiosity of the hall. The focus was not on the menu and the ducks that you served and the fluffy ice creams that you had. No, the focus was on the bride and the groom, their oneness and their love. So in a way, find that blessing in your new setting and embrace it, celebrate it, because that is what marriages are about. That's what a wedding is about. And I wish that after the COVID-19, for some reason, I'm not so optimistic about this, but I wish that after COVID-19, we return to that mode in which brides and grooms celebrate themselves and not all of the fluff around them, in which brides and grooms celebrate their souls and not the bodily aspects of marriages, because that's what a wedding is about. Number three, I will say to this bride and to all brides and grooms that have had to suffer because of their weddings, I will quote what my rabbi says, and that is that the most important question of life is the question of and then what? Your bar mitzvah, and then what? Do you continue your journey of Judaism? You get a diploma in school. Do you continue, or at university, do you continue your studies? Or is that where your schooling ends? And then what? Nah, you get married, and then what? And do you know what the most important day of, the most important part of your wedding day is? I'll tell you what, the day after, and the day after that, and the day after that. A wedding lasts about 3, 4, 5, 6 hours. If you're in Israel, 7 hours. If you're in Morocco, 9 hours. But that's just 9 hours. Marriage lasts hopefully for a lifetime. So focus on that. God gave you that blessing, really, that you now have the time and the energy to focus on your marriage much more than the focus on the type of flowers you'll have. Embrace that blessing too. That's what I can tell that bride.
Rabbi?
Next.
Rabbi?
Yeah.
Can I make a funny comment?
Sure, absolutely.
Okay, and we're on the wedding,
Eddie, my wedding with Eddie was nothing fancy. It was really laughable. It was in the back of a kosher restaurant in New York, and we didn't have a lot of people, and everything went wrong. Everything, even the photographer went out of business, and we just had 12 pictures that we could rescue, but
Right.
we laughed about it. It made it a very memorable, funny time, and the few pictures that we have, the kids laugh about it. We laughed about it, and we were married almost 52 years.
That's beautiful. Beautiful. You
So
see?
and my dress cost $12.50.
Great.
This is true.
Can I also add something to that?
Yes,
I
sure.
realized when I was planning our wedding that everybody was so focused on the wedding.
Yeah.
And I was moving to the States. I was moving with a guy that, nowadays everybody lived with their boyfriend before, but we couldn't because we were in different continents.
Yeah.
And I realized that what I was more focused on is what was going to happen afterwards. And I think that is what is more important, that
That's
afterwards, the next 20 years and 100 years or whatever time you have together, you are with the right guy and know what happened on that night party
Right.
to impress everybody else.
Very good. Very
my
good. Thank you. Yes. Beautiful. Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you, Joyce and Laura, for sharing those comments. Thank you. Okay. All right. Next question. Also a sad situation. So, dear Rabbi, I have a friend who generally suffers from depression, but this coronavirus has made her depression much, much worse. She even confessed to me that she has suicidal thoughts, although she dismisses them immediately. What should I do? What can I say to her? How can I best help her? So, look, first and foremost, I'm no professional, and if she needs professional help, that's the number one thing you need to do. Ensure that she receives professional help. Especially if it's a matter of life and death, then do it as quickly as possible. And I responded. I didn't wait for this Q&A to happen. Time is of essence. I replied to. She knows this. I replied to her. But I'm saying this to anyone who might be in a similar situation. Seek professional help ASAP. That's number one. Number two, I will say this: that depression in general. It depends on the case, and I'd love to learn more about it. But I will say this: I think the best thing we can do for friends and family relatives, people we know that suffer from depression, is two things. Number one is to be there for them, and that can be with words. It can be without words. Just to give them the present that we're present. That's number one. Number two, I will say this: I think that very often what leads to depression, or at least feelings of depression, is the self-preoccupation of a person. The more self-preoccupied we are, the sadder we will be. The less self-preoccupied we are, the happier we will be. Happiness is other-oriented. Sadness is me-oriented. I'm sad because this happened to me, because I have this, because I'm suffering from this. But the more self-preoccupied you are, the more you'll delve into those negativities and the more sadness you will be creating. And therefore, and by the way, I think that's why, again, happiness equals other preoccupation. When I can fulfill my purpose towards the other, then I'm happy. No vacation in the world will ever be able to even come close to that feeling of happiness when I serve the other by fulfilling my purpose on how to serve the other, but when I'm other-oriented. I think that's why, by the way, children are happy. Why are children happy? Try it. Set a child on your lap and ask him, how are you feeling today? You know what that child will do? I've tried it many times. You know what that child will do? He'll look at you like this and say, what are you talking about? I'm feeling today? Who's thinking about me? I'm busy living life. Leave me alone. And because again, they're not self-preoccupied. The more self-preoccupied will be, the sadder will become. And therefore, someone who suffers from depression or from sadness in general, the best thing we can do for them is not just be present, but ask them for advice. Ask them for their talent, their skill. Ask them, what is their talent? And then tell them, can I help you actualize the skill that you have, this talent that you have? Why? Because when they are given the stage to voice their talent and to actualize their skill and to even offer their opinion about something towards you, their advice, then they will feel like, oh, I'm needed in this world. I'm unique. Someone needs me. I can fulfill my purpose. I can be other-oriented. And that other orientation will then lead to another other orientation, and another other orientation, and eventually take them out, pull them out of this self-preoccupation bubble and enable them to finally live their God-given purpose and be of service to others and of service to mankind and to God himself. And I think that is really what can pull a person from the depths of the abyss to the heights of life itself. So that's just something to think about, even though, again, I'm no professional, and if someone needs professional help, then please encourage them to get it. Next and final question for this evening, and then again, we can open this up. Dear Rabbi, can you please explain the reason and history of the tradition to say l'chaim, and why do some people click their glasses as they do so? So it's a great question. I mean, you know, it's funny, we just spoke about Fiddler on the Roof, so that's one of the songs, right? L'chaim to life. And it's become a very Jewish saying, l'chaim. So what's the history of it, and why do people click their glasses as they do so? Let me relate first to that second part and get it out of the way. Why people click the glasses is because that was the custom of kings. I know of French kings, of the Louis the 6th, the 7th, etc. But the custom of kings was to click glasses as they drank with someone else. Why? Because they never trusted the other, especially if it was a competitor. So what did they do when they drank wine with them? They had to drink wine with them. So what did they do? They would pour wine into each other's cup to almost say, well, I promise you I didn't give you any poison. You promised me you didn't give me any poison. And once we've exchanged our wines, then we can rest assured that that we are not poison, and therefore we could drink. So that's the custom, and I don't think that's a Jewish custom. But the custom to say l'chaim is a very Jewish custom. It dates back to the beginning of times. And let me start by saying that it's a custom that's found in the Talmud. Where so? The Talmud asks itself, it's a midrash, it's an agadata, it's a tosefta, but the Talmud asks that whether the expression, there was expression like this in the times of the Talmud, chamra lechaye rabbanan ulechaye talmidahon, which means wine for the life of the sages and for the life of the students. The Talmud asks the question, is that a pagan custom? And the Talmud says, no, it's not. Even Rabbi Akiva, the legendary Rabbi Akiva, at the wedding of his children, each time he opened a bottle of wine, he said l'chaim. So it's an old custom. Now, why do we say l'chaim? Why do we say to life? So again, it goes back to the very beginning of times. And that is because each time in the Bible, or almost each time in the Bible, wine is mentioned, the result is not positive. So at the beginning of times, we speak of the tree of knowledge that Adam and Eve ate from. According to the Talmud, the tree of knowledge may have been a vineyard, grapes. What happened after they ate from it? They were expelled from the Garden of Eden. Next example, in the Torah, Noah comes out of the ark. This is post-flood now. And God says, now you have to go and plant and build the world anew. What does he do? He plants a vineyard. What does he become? Drunk. He has wine from his own vineyard. He becomes drunk. And he's found naked by his children. Again, not a pleasant result. And we can go on and on and on with examples. But when wine is mentioned, very often the result is negative. The daughters of Lot, I'm thinking about, who made their father drunk to sleep with him. A whole other biblical story. So what we do when we drink wine, we say lechaim, to life. May the result of our drinking wine be to life, be for something good, and not like in the Bible. So that's that's number one. Number two, or that's number two. Then number three, the other custom is, it's interesting because when the Sanhedrin, when the rabbinic court of 71 rabbis dealt with capital cases, they would get together, and when the verdict had to be served, then they would say Savri Maranan, which means, what do the rabbis think? Is this guy going to die? Is he going to life or to death? And then the rabbis would answer, would express their verdict, to life or to death. Now, that's why we say Savri Maranan in the Kiddush, Savri Maranan, and we answer what? Lechaim. And each time again, we drink some wine, some alcohol together, we say Lechaim. So that we remind ourselves that the outcome of this gathering should not be like some of the outcomes of the gathering of the Sanhedrins, but each verdict should be to life. That's another reason. Another reason, Jewish reason of why we say Lechaim is even deeper than that. And that is that when two Jews get together and they drink some wine, what happens? Secrets come out. Now, the secrets come from a deep place, maybe even the soul itself. And what we wish for each other when we get together and we get a little tipsy and a little drunk, we wish for each other that these secrets should lead us towards life, towards building life, towards increasing life, towards spreading life. That these secrets, again, should illuminate the world. Let us get together, drink a little. Whatever secrets come, let them not be secrets of violence, like we find sometimes with drunkards. Let them not be secrets of negativities, but quite the opposite of life. And finally, I want to add one last reason, and that's a Hasidic reason. We've had now multiple times at CBT what we call Farbrengens, which are Hasidic gatherings. And during Hasidic gatherings, we often drink Lechaim. Why do we do that? And the reason we do that is because we tell the evil inclination, look, when we come to make good resolutions, you come and disturb us. So we trick him. We trick the evil inclination and we say to him, look, we're just going to drink. We're going to a bar. Don't come with us. We're messed up already. Leave us alone. So the evil inclination goes away. When the evil inclination goes away and we're drinking at a Hasidic Farbrengen, now he's out because he saw us. It's like a bar. He doesn't need to be there. So then we say, let's not forget. This is a Hasidic Farbrengen. Let's say Lechaim. The evil inclination, we had to be tricked. So therefore we're drinking. But let this drinking lead us to the goal that we initially had in mind, to not have any evil inclination so that we can make a good resolution and take upon ourselves actions of Lechaim, actions of life. So before I open this up to everyone, I conclude by saying to everyone, Lechaim on a water bottle, but Lechaim nonetheless.